Madison's heart thundered as the phone buzzed again. 6 missed calls, 10 unanswered texts, each one more insistent than the last. Outside, rain pounded against the apartment windows, a relentless percussion that matched the rhythm of her racing pulse. She pressed a trembling hand to her forehead and forced herself to breathe slowly, inhale, hold, exhale, 3 times before finally sweeping the screen to wake it. Madison, the voicemail began, her brother's voice tight with urgency. Call me back. It's urgent. Then static. Then nothing. The line went dead. She stared at her own reflection in the black glass of the phone as if in that oily surface she might find answers. Her dark hair, damp from hours spent passing in the downpour earlier that evening, clung to her cheeks. Her shirt was damp too. She'd spilled coffee on it, she realized, when the first pair of strange men in long coats had asked for directions to the old railway yard. She'd sent him a picture. These guys are asking about Dad, she texted. He'd replied, get inside. Don't talk. She'd laughed, half in relief, half in fear. But that had been 2 hours ago. Madison's fingertips drummed against the wooden armrest of her chair. She had exactly 7 minutes before she had to leave for her standardist, and not just any, but one that could decide her future. She had to think fast. Speak fluent. Control her breathing. She took another slow breath, willing calm into every fiber of her being. Adiot, corazón directum, she clicked shut her laptop and tossed her notes into her bag. The old railway yard was on the far side of town. She'd have to take a taxi. She frowned as she pocketed her phone. Her brother's last known location was an abandoned goods depot near the tracks. The messages implied he'd found something dangerous, something that directly concerned their late father's mysterious disappearance 5 years ago. That had been unsolved, the police concluding it a simple accident. Yet Mads had never believed it tonight. He'd finally called her into the middle of his investigation. The street light outside cast trembling shadows as Madison climbed into the back seat of a black sedan. The driver, a tall man with a scar slicing down his cheek, said nothing as she directed him toward the outskirts. Each street they passed seemed to push her further from everything she once knew and closer to Chaos. Just past the cattle guard, the train yard came into view, rusted tracks radiating like veins from a central hub of massive, graffiti-stained warehouses. Half lit by flickering lights, the place looked abandoned, except for the way the shadows shifted, suggesting movement that shouldn't have been there. Madison's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text, "Don't trust the driver. They're not with me." No signature. No indication who sent it. Panic curled in her chest. She looked at the driver through the rearview mirror. His eyes were too cold, too unblinking. Her hand went to the small blade she always carried for protection. Her father had insisted, and she clutched it tightly in her fist. She had 30 seconds to decide, speak up, confront him, risk making him angry, or play along, bide her time, and hope Mads was close by. "Can you stop by the old paint warehouse?" "The one near the east track," she said in a steady voice that betrayed none of her fear. The driver nodded and slowed down. "Why are you here so late, kid?" he asked, glancing sideways. Picking up a package, she lied, her voice smooth. "Important." She took a deep breath, chiding herself for the quiver she felt. "Think fast. Speak fluent. You can do this." The warehouse door groaned as Madison pushed it open. Inside, the stale air smelled of oil and mildew. Her footsteps echoed as she scanned the darkness for Mads. There were crates stacked to the ceiling, like silent sentinels watching her every move. "Matt," she called softly. A light clicked on, and he stepped into a narrow beam, his face drawn, his dark eyes rimmed with exhaustion. In his hand, he held a battered notebook and a small, electronic device that glowed faintly. "Medicine," he whispered, relief flooding his expression. "Thank God you came." She hurried forward and threw her arms around him. He hugged her back fiercely, then stepped out of the embrace to show her what he'd found. "This," he said, pressing the device into her palm, "is a voice recorder. It intercepted a conversation between two of your father's old business associates. They never mean for me to get this." His voice trembled. "They know I've got it." Madison swallowed hard and examined the recorder. A single red light blinked. She flicked it gently. The light turned steady. "They planned the accident," Matt said. His voice was almost a hiss. "They silenced him because he was about to expose their money laundering ring, using that yard as a front." He swallowed. "I have proof now." A distant clang made them both freeze. Behind them, crates rustled. Someone or something was moving. Matt slid behind a stack of boxes. "We have to get out. Now." Madison nodded and stalked quietly toward the exit, Matt's closed behind. But the warehouse door slammed shut. The key turned and the lock clicked ominously. They were trapped. Outside, the driver's engine roared. He'd driven around to the warehouse's loading dock and now stood in the open cab, staring at the shuttered entrance. "Not leaving so soon." His voice was mellow, but the malaise in it froze Madison's blood. He strode around the truck and flipped open the toolbox. In his hand gleamed a heavy sledgehammer. Madison backed away. Inside, Mads held her arm. "There's another exit, this way." He led her deeper into the maze of crates to a back door Mickey'd once told them about, an old fire escape, rarely used. Madison's heart hammered as they jiggled the handle. It gave way with a squeal of protest. They staggered outside onto a narrow ledge 6 feet off the ground. Below, the gravel yard stretched empty, save for the driver, hammer raised above his head. "Stop!" Madison shouted, knowing he heard them. She grabbed Mac's hand and leaped. Pain shot through her ankle as she hit the ground, but adrenaline dulled it to a throb. They sprinted toward the nearest tracks as the men raised the hammer again. Each step felt like lead. But she forced herself to run faster. Behind them, he threw the hammer. It skidded off the ground inches from their heels. They ducked into a cluster of parked railcars, their metal sides cold against Madison's cheek as she listened to the echoes of her own ragged breathing. They had to reach the control boxes on the north side. Matt said there was an exit through the ominous concrete tunnel there. Each meter they covered brought them closer to safety and further from whoever wanted them dead. Frozen in the shadow of a tank car emblazoned with peeling red letters, Madison whispered into her sleeve, "Think fast. Speak fluent." "What's the plan?" Matt checked the recorder. "We can upload this to the cloud in seconds. Once these recordings are out, they can't stop us. All the trolls in their network can't erase every copy. But we need," Madison's voice cut off as the beam of a flashlight swept across the tracks. The men had found them. Madison swallowed her fear and glanced around. A stack of old pallets stood nearby. With a nod to Matt, she grabbed one and hefted it over her shoulder. "On 3, she hissed. 1, 2, 3. Together they charged from the shadows, Madison swinging the pallet at the man's knees, sending him sprawling. Matt stuffed low and sprinted toward the tunnel entrance. Madison grabbed the recorder from Mac's belt and dashed after him, slamming the heavy metal door behind them. It clanged shut, and they were in near total darkness, the only light the faint glare from the device's display and the cramped glow of an emergency exit sign. "We have 2 minutes before the door's alarm triggers," Matt whispered. He pulled the recorder close. "Upload now." Madison's fingers flew over the tiny keypad he'd improvised. She felt tears blur her vision as the progress bar crept across the screen. Her father's face flashed in her mind, his pride, his unwavering belief that justice would prevail. That belief had sustained her all these years. "Dawn," she breathed. The bar hit 100%. A distant siren wailed. Light seeped under the tunnel door. They exchanged a look charged with exhilaration and terror. Their message was out, but freedom still lay beyond that door. With trembling hands, they found the release latch. It clicked, and the door swung inward. A squad of uniformed officers floated in, weapons drawn. Madison's legs trembled beneath her, but relief washed over her. She recognized the lead officer, Detective Suresh, the one who originally investigated their father's death. His eyes widened at the recorder in her hand. "Madison." "Mats." "You two okay?" he shouted above the roar of the hallway lights. They nodded, exhausted. Mats handed him the device. The detective pressed a button and listened to the first file. It crackled with 2 voices discussing financial figures and hush money. "Oh my God," Suresh breathed. This changes everything." Madison sank to the floor. Her ankle throbbed, but she barely felt it. Her brother knelt beside her and squeezed her shoulder. "We did it," he whispered. The next morning, sunlight slanted through the blinds of the precinct's conference room. Madison and Max sat across from Suresh and several senior officers. Their lawyer looking on the recordings had gone viral. Press had already camped outside the station. Suresh cleared his throat. "The suspects have been placed under arrest. Your father's case is being reopened on full homicide charges." Madison felt tears spring to her gaze. The weight she'd carried all these years, the doubts, the nightmares, had lifted. She thought of her father's voice telling her to always stand up for truth, no matter the cost. Max leaned in and whispered, "You spoke fluent fear tonight, sis, and thought faster than lightning. I was proud of you." She smiled, chest warm with relief and triumph. "Couldn't have done it without you," she replied softly. They walked out into the bright morning, the distant hum of cameras already rising. Madison felt the cool breeze on her face and took a deep breath of the city's new day. Her future was unwritten, but today she knew one thing: no secret could stay buried forever, and no injustice could survive the light, especially when siblings learned to think fast, speak fluent, and stand together.